Hello BookTube. Today on my 2023 library tour, I will be finishing up the boxes of Exile. These are the books, science fiction and fantasy, that I am more than a little confident I could probably get rid of at some point in the future. I also had been or am running out of space, and I decided to put a lot of these books in boxes since I haven't really gotten on with science fiction and fantasy over the past few years, even though it has been my favorite genre of fiction. But anyway, I have 4 boxes, so let's get going. Okay, in this box here, I have The Path of Anger by Antoine Rouard. This is a grimdark fantasy that I really did not like. This is The Ragged Blade by Christopher Ruz. Again, this is an epic fantasy that I did not like. It's about a warrior trying to escape his ex-boyfriend, who's an evil wizard, while trying to protect his daughter from that wizard. I did not like it at all. Then I have The Mask of the Sun by Fred Saberhagen and The White Mists of Power by Kristen Catherine Rush. This is Space Opera by Catherine M. Valenti. This is a novel that came out a few years ago. It basically takes the idea of space opera and rolls with it. Basically, there is a Eurovision in space. And if you're a newly contacted species and you lose, well, your planet gets blown up. And Earth is um, joining the club. Will Earth be blown up or will it be saved? Yeah. I built on it several times. I finally read it in 2020 and I didn't like it. I also haven't gotten on with Catherine Valenti's The Refrigerator Monologues, which is basically a short story collection that takes as its point of departure the idea of the woman in the refrigerator, the concept that some female characters in American superhero comic books are only useful for, or only useful to sort of hiding their uh, the male superhero force they're associated with as struggles and characterization by being brutally murdered. Most famously, the girlfriend of Kyle Rayner, the 1990s Green Lantern, who was stuffed in a refrigerator by a supervillain called Major Force. Next is Mazes of Power, book 1 of the Broken Trust series by Juliet Wade. This is a science fiction fantasy. I don't know what it is, but it's terrible. Also terrible is The Factory Witches of Lowell by C.S. Mallorik. This is a historical fantasy that's not very good. This is Priest of Bones by Peter McLean, the first book in the War for the Rose Throne trilogy or quartet. I don't know how many books there are now. I really like this book. It's basically a fantasy version of Peaky Blinders. and I love this first book. Um, and I'm fond of the second book, really fond of the second book, Priest of Gallows. My only problem with this book is that there's what I call the Dansburg Medal, where Thomas Piety, the main character, rather than being just a crime lord, basically becomes James Bond. And I don't like that storyline, that character development. And no, wait, this is the second book in the series with the Dansburg Medal. Sorry about that. It's kind of late and I'm a bit frazzled. So, anyway, but yeah, so I liked it, Priest of Lies, but that Dinsburg medal kind of, and it ends on a bit of a shaky note as well, which leads to Priest of Gallows, the third book in the series. I hated this book. It's basically just Thomas Piety becoming James Bond, and the novel suffers for it immensely. Very disappointing. Um, kind of, maybe I should keep Priest of Bones and maybe Priest of Lies, but then just get rid of Priest of Gallows. Oh, this is Docile by Cam Sapara. This is a dystopic, near future science fiction novel about a drug that can basically render people docile, and they can effectively be enslaved. And this book is just what I read of it before I bailed. It's bad, just bad. Um, Before I read or bailed on Docile, I also picked up First Become Ashes, also by Cam Sapara. This is a different novel. It's kind of sort of fantasy, but it has very much a lot of the same themes because Sapara has this tendency for um, he has his kinks, um, and those kinks play an awful role in both of his books. Next is holy diver, The Root, a novel of the Wrath and Athenaeum by Nauman Gilbert Tillahan. This is a contemporary YA fantasy that I never got on with. And I have the sequel, The Tree. At some point in the next 1,000 years, the final volume, The Fruit, should be released. This is one of the Shadows of the Apt series, Salute the Dark by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Never got into it. This is another novel in the Shadows of the Apt, Blood of the Mantis. Dragonfly Falling, again, part of the Shadows of the Apt by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Oh, here's the first book in it, Empire in Black and Gold, Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is a fantasy series in which humans are either apt or inapt, which means they can either use magic or not, and they are associated with insects and arachnids. I really did not like this first book, so I never got around to the others. And this is another one, The Scarab Path. So these all back, and I'll get on to the next box. Because again, I would like to get these all done up for like a 30-minute mark, which may not necessarily work. Looking at time. Oh, and if I'm a little bit low, I'm trying not to disturb anybody because my mom's asleep. And obviously, I'm in the kitchen and not in the, well, kitchen living room and not in the my bedroom. Next box. Okay. This first book is Children of the Night by Dan Simmons. It's a vampire novel. Never got around to. The Traitor Baru Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. This is epic fantasy series that made the rounds a few years ago that I absolutely hate, even though everybody else loves it. Fireheart Tiger by Elliot de Bodard. Didn't particularly care for it. It's one of those Tor.com novellas. This is The House of Shattered Wings by Elliot de Bodard. This is book one in the, don't know why that was in there. Dominion of the Fallen series. I quite like this book. Although I had my issues with it, but I quite liked it. And I also rather liked The House of Binding Thorns by also by Elliot de Bodard. So I don't quite know the argument why these two are in here, but I never did get around to The House of Sundering Flames, which is the third book in the series. And the Dominion of Fallen series has had a weird and annoying publication history in the US. This is Griot, edited by Milton J. Davis and Charles O. Saunders. This is a work of African-inspired sword and sorcery, which is Sword and Soul. Amber Low by Lara Elena Donnelly. This is a fantasy novel with no magic that's diesel punk, and I hate. Reach the Sands by Sarah Beth Durst. This is a standalone fantasy that has its strong points, but I think ultimately I maybe should give it a reread before I get rid of it. I think I should have, yes, The Bone Maker, also by Sarah Beth Durst. This is again a standalone fantasy that I bailed on. The next two books are the Terror Sequence books 1 and 2, The Last Sun by Kitty Edwards, which when I first read it, I liked, and so every subsequent reading, I liked it less. And I did not get on with The Hanged Man. Although there's a part of me that actually does want to find out how the story ends, but I just wish there were different characters. So the next two should be, I guess, Capablanca. The Shadowlands duology, Hidden Sun, which I actually rather liked, but I didn't quite get on with Broken Shadow. That was one of the books that caused the whole science fiction and fantasy collapse. This is Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. This is an occult detective novel that is fairly bad. Which means I also have American Hippo, which is a collection of her hippo stories, an alternate U.S. in which the Mississippi River has been taken over by hippos imported into the United States to replace cattle or something. I also have Seven Princes by John R. Foles, which is a sword and sorcery epic fantasy. I don't know. I built on it and ended up picking it up for Bell Redemption that I never actually gave it. Yeah. Okay, let's get these all in here. Oh, and sorry about not doing a second tag video earlier, but I went over to my brother's for Valentine's Day, and we were there for a while. Okay, so that takes care of that box. And bring them up so I can get this box over here, which will be a while. Ooh. Okay, I think I might end up blitzing. Holy diver. Okay, this is John Carter of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It includes A Princess of Mars, The Gods of Mars, The Warlord of Mars, Thuvia Maid of Mars, and Chessmen of Mars. I've never gotten into the John Carter series. And I'm probably a bad science fiction and fantasy fan. This is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I never got to, but I never really got on with anything else by him. This is A Meeting at Corvallis by S.M. Sterling. Words of Radiance, Book 2 of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. There was a point where I did want to try to get into Brandon Sanderson, but it never worked out. This is The Grey Mane of Morning by Joey Chant. The sequel to Red Moon and Black Mountain, which is a portal fantasy. This is The Golem's Eye by Jonathan Stroud. These three are the Eon's Gate books by Sam Sykes. This is Tome of the Undergates, which I did a tri-chapter tag on and hated. The Skybound Sea is the third book, and Black Halo is the second. I also have a bind-up of the Book of Scathe by Lee Brackett. The Best of Fritz Leiber. The Winged Histories by Sophia Samatar. Barsk by Lawrence M. Schoen, which I did not get on with. It's a space opera about sentient animals. Snakewood by Adrian Selby, which I did a tri-chapter tag of and hated. And Dark Mondays by Cage Baker. This is a short story collection that is mixed. There are some really good stories in here, some not so good. Next is Ethan of Athos by Louis McMaster Bujold. I've tried it several times and it stinks. The Curse of Shalion, which I do not know I have because I built on it the first time I read it. The Warrior of World's End by Lynn Carter. The Enchantress of World's End by Lynn Carter. The Black Star by Lynn Carter. Oh, The Pearls by Deborah Chester. This is the one of hers that I read and absolutely hated. The Faded Sun trilogy by C.J. Sherry, which I did not get on with. These are the War of Powers. I think there are 4, only have 3, and I regret having them. This is The Sundered Realm by Robert E. Vardaman and Victor Milan. The sequel is The City in the Glacier. And the third book is The Destiny Stone. I also have 2 books in the by Nancy Springer. The White Heart, which is the first book, and The Golden Swan, which has a magnificent cover. Unfortunately, the novel itself is not very good. And I have The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which I have had 2 goes at and failed both times. Next is Empire of Sand by Tasha Shuri. I think this is the first book in a duology that I did not get on with. People's Future of the United States, edited by Victor Laval and John Joseph Adams. This is a science fiction anthology that I've never gone on with. Almost Infamous by Matt Carter. This is a superhero novel about supervillains that's not very good. Breath of Earth by Beth Cato. Didn't get on with it. I did a try chapter tag of it. The War by B. Caitlin. This is a weird novel that I did not get on with. And then the trilogy by John Sprunk. Shadow's Sun, which I read and didn't like, and then Shadow's Master and Shadow's Lore. Imaro by Charles Saunders. This is a classic of sword and sorcery, of sword and soul. And the last book in this box, The Great Book of Amber by Roger Zelazny. This collects all of the Amber books, which I do not quite know why I have this, because I did not get on with the first book. So why, oh why, did I ever pick it up? Except for the fact that at a point in time, I was rather interested in trying to, a bit of a completionist of my collection being science fiction and fantasy focused and having a lot of classic and canonical works. Are not necessarily all that enjoyable for me to read. But anyway, that's what happened. And I never did get to it, so anyway. the last box. Oh, this one has been. I may not be getting up off the floor from this one. So, first up is Half Resurrection Blues by Daniel Jose Older. This is a contemporary or urban fantasy that I did not get on with, which is a common refrain. I also have two books in the Dresden Files, Grave Peril and Stormfront, which I bailed on and for some reason decided to pick it up. I guess for redemption. I also have Jarek by Stephen Brust. Genesis of Shannara, Armageddon's Children. Wizard at Large, Book 3 of the Magic Kingdom of Landover series by Terry Brooks. The Best of Lee Brackett by Lee Brackett. Web of Darkness by Marion Zimmer Bradley. Geese of the Gargoyle by Piers Anthony. On the Pale Horse by Piers Anthony. This is a very bad novel. Shield by Paul Anderson. Crescent Moon by Saladin Ahmed. This is actually kind of good. I don't know if I want to reread it though. The Coming of the Horse Clans by Robert Adams. And The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Next is Women's War by Jenna Glass. This is the first volume in an epic fantasy series that I did not get on with at all. Salary by Michael Johnson. I think it's the first volume in an epic fantasy series that I wish I did not pick up. I never actually got to this copy. I checked it out a few times from the library and did not get on with it. The other book that caused the decline and fall of science fiction and fantasy, Lies of Descent by Troy Carroll Butcher. I think this is a standalone. I've never seen a sequel advertised anywhere. Yeah, but that was kind of disappointing. The Myths of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. This is a modern work of Arthurian legendary, and yeah, Marion Zimmer Bradley is a monster. Next is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This was a standalone epic fantasy that has since, I guess, morphed into a series. I did not get on with this book at all. And The Counselor by E.J. Beaton. Did not get on with this either. So this is Lost Gods by Maka Yongo. This was fairly good. Quite liked it. I did not have as much success with Pale Kings, the sequel. Although I don't know if anything else by him has ever been published. I also have 3 books in the Tenseret series by Neon Yang, although at this point they were going by J.Y. Yang. I have The Monsters of Descent, the 3rd book, and these are the Tor.com novellas. This is the 2nd, The Red Threads of Fortune, and the 1st one, The Black Tides of Heaven. Did not get on with the first 2. Not entirely sure why I ever picked up the third, but I did. This is Have a King by Joe Abercrombie. Never got on with his work. Largely because I have bailed on the Blade itself. Classically grimdark. Two more books that I'm not telling you why I have in my collection. These are the two-book bind-up of the Long Price Quartet. Shadow and Betrayal by Daniel Abraham, and The Price of War. I tried the first book and did not get on with it, but for some reason I have to pick them up. And finally, the last three books in the boxes of Exile, the Execrable trilogy by Mark T. Barnes, The Pillars of Sand, although I've only actually bailed on the first book. The Obsidian Heart, and The Garden of Stones. So book two, but that concludes the boxes of Exile tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow because I'll upload this tomorrow, but Thursday I will start on the science fiction and fantasy that are still on the shelves. Although many of them should probably be in these boxes, and some of the books from these boxes probably should be on the shelves. I do need to rethink these boxes and eventually figure out where to put them outside of in the hall, because I do want to get another bookcase there. But anyway, book two, but I need to put these books up and go get started on my nightly walking. So until I see you again, thank you, BookTube. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you're watching this, and stay safe.